Hello, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Mm. Hello, can everyone hear me? Can see that Dr. Oloma is here. Please, Dr. Oloma and Ifeanyiwa, please can you request to speak so that I can add you? Okay. I think we have Dr. Oloma, we have Mr. Yusuf Babatunde, we have Ifeanyiwa George, we have okay. Okay. I think Dr. Silas, Mr. Silas is here. Mr. Silas, if you can hear me, please can you request to be a speaker? Okay. Um, Mr. Silas, if you can hear me, I just accepted, or rather, I sent you an invite to speak. If you can check the mic button at the left part of your screen, bottom left of your screen. Okay. Mr. Silas, if you can hear me, just use the microphone button. Okay. I'm still waiting for your invitation. I think apart from Mr. Silas, we are waiting for Mr. Ibrahim to join in. Good evening, everyone. So we're just waiting for a few minutes to have all our speakers on board. We have Dr. Olwama here already. We have Mr. Yusuf Papatunde. We have Ifeanyiwa George. Mr. Silas is here, although he has not yet accepted the request to be a speaker. So, Mr. Silas, you can hear me again. Please just tap the bottom left icon, a microphone icon at the bottom left part of your screen. You will see an icon there. Just tap it so you can request to speak, as a speaker rather. Okay, so I'll just wait for a minute more, then we'll just kick off the conversation. I'll try once more with Mr. Silas. Okay, Mr. Silas, please can you confirm if you received an invite to speak? You can send a reaction. Okay, yes, you're now a speaker. Fantastic. All right. So I guess we can start the conversation right now. Mr. Ibrahim will join along the way. So good evening, everyone listening to the sound of my voice. You are all welcome to this space. Thank you all for joining. I'd like to also recognize the speakers on my list. Yes, today we have Mr. Silas, we have Dr. Oloma, Mr. Yusuf Babatunde, and Ifeyinwa George. We are expecting Mr. Ibrahim to join us soon. But yes, it's another time to learn with DRASA, but this time not through our social media posts, but on a conversation with you. And who are we at DRASA? At DRASA, we are committed to ensuring that no one suffers from preventable infectious diseases. And this actually inspires all our work across our program areas, which of course includes antimicrobial resistance. You can actually learn more about our work on our website at drasatrust.org. So yeah, what are we going to be talking about today? The theme of tonight's conversation is understanding AMR through the One Health lens. And this conversation is very timely and very important, especially being that just recently we concluded the World AMR Awareness Week on the 24th of November, a week-long program to celebrate antimicrobial awareness. Yeah, and sometime in October 18th to be precise, Nigeria's One Health National Antimicrobial Resistance Plan was launched, the 2.0 version, a 5-year policy strategy that was launched recently, and Nigeria also accepted to host the 2026 high-level ministerial conference on AMR. So while we're having this conversation, I'm talking about AMR all through. And what is antimicrobial resistance really? Antimicrobial resistance is a complex term and can be quite difficult to explain, quite difficult to understand, especially for some of us that have even encountered this term multiple times. We still find it difficult to understand sometimes. But even as described as by WHO, it was described as a serious issue and one of the top global public health threats. So I think what antimicrobial resistance makes us to think is that, for me personally, I think what I think of is I can imagine, or rather, I don't want to imagine because I don't pray it ever happens, right? But just imagine a time where drugs no longer work. Like just ponder on it for a second, where you pop pills, this time not bad pills, of course, but you take your antibiotics, you take your antimalarial drugs, you take, those antifungal drugs, and none of these is just working. Nothing is working for you. I want us to ponder on it for a second, and that is what AMR can do if not curbed early, right? So anyways, our expert speakers are here to help us understand what AMR is, and we can how we can actually take actionable steps, things we can do to actually prevent its spread, right? Before we proceed, we'd have to have some housekeeping rules, some ground rules to guide the conversation this evening. So first of all, just feel free, this is a safe space, feel free to react with any emoji. When a speaker says something that resonates with you or something you can relate with, please react with your emoji. And the emoji icon is actually a heart icon with a plus symbol located at the bottom of your screen. So if someone says something that you can relate to, just react with it. Also, if you want to speak or ask your questions or make your contributions, please raise your hand using the hand emoji, right? Raise your hand using the hand emoji and we'll grant you speaker rights. You can also send your questions or your comments via our direct messages, which is our DMs, right? And we'll read it out here as our time permits. Also, please, during your comments and your questions, be respectful of the time and the persons you're addressing, and also be concise. We advise that you're concise and you go straight to the point while making your comments or your contributions. And lastly, we know you want to say something about the space, contribute by tweeting. So please reply to the space. There's a chat-like symbol at the bottom right of your screen. You will see that there, so you can use that to reply to the space. But while replying, please use the hashtags Learn with DRASA and hashtag One Health AMR. So yeah, and I think you are tired of hearing my voice. So yeah, very soon I'll be introducing our speakers, but of course we have to give honor to whom honor is due and read out the fantastic work that they've been doing in the One Health space. So we have a fine blend of speakers from We have a fine blend of speakers from the environmental sector, the human sector, and the animal sector. So first of all, I'll be introducing our first speaker, Ifeinwa George, the AMR Program Manager at DRASA. She oversees the AMR portfolio of the organization, and with a target of implementing interventions to address AMR proliferation in Nigeria. She also holds a pharmacy degree from the University of Benin and has over 5 years experience leading various public health programs. So if anyone, I know you're a speaker now, so if you can just say hi to our audience, or you can send a reaction emoji.
Hi everyone. Good evening. I'm sorry I'm a little old, so I'll just say hi to everyone instead of the emoji. I'm just trying to figure out how to send that. Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, we're all old in the social media thing, so yeah, it's allowed. Thank you very much, Ifeinwa. So next up, I'll be introducing Mr. Silas. Mr. Dixon Akko Silas is a principal scientific officer with the Department of Pollution Control and Environmental Health, whose duties involves promoting a safe, healthy, and sustainable environment. He's also part of the development of the National Antimicrobial Policy for the environmental health sector. Interesting. And is passionate about advocacy and community sensitization, environmental health and sanitation, intervention response to Lassa fever and cholera outbreak in Nigeria, and community intervention on the control of open defecation. I'm particularly interested in the open defecation part. So yeah, you're welcome, Mr. Silas. So if you can just unmute your mic to speak, or just say hello to our listeners. You can send a reaction.
All right, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. Uh, it will be boring to put everything we do. I'm also an environmental health officer. I have some background in microbiology and cell biology and genetics. But I hope we are going to have a nice time today. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Silas. Thank you so much for that warm introduction. You're welcome to this conversation. So yeah, next up we'll be introducing Dr. Oluoma Agiri. She is a research analyst at the One Health Trust, which is a WHO collaborative center for antimicrobial resistance. She also provided research support for the situational analysis of the Nigerian National Action Plan on AMR. So before joining the One Health Trust, she was one of us. She worked on the AMR school program of DRASA Health Trust, where she educated youth in Lagos, Nigeria on AMR, infection prevention and control, and personal hygiene. She is very passionate about improving global health through research and advocacy, particularly in One Health, AMR awareness and education, and strengthening animal health services in low and middle income countries. You are very welcome to the conversation, Dr. Oluoma. Please, you can unmute to just say hi to our listeners.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Oloma, as she's already said, and thank you for having me, Drasa. I look forward to the discussion this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you and sharing your brilliant insights this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Next up, we'll be introducing Mr. Ibrahim Adamu. He's not yet on the call, but I'll just read his bio briefly. So he's a microbiologist, the co-founder and head of operations and partnership for the AMR InterVarsity Training Program, which is dedicated to empowering tertiary institution students to lead the fight against antimicrobial resistance from the grassroots level, and also establishing AMR clubs. So yeah, his research is focused on utilizing the One Health approach in the epidemiology of AMR in healthcare associated infections, infection prevention and control, and system strengthening. So he currently serves as the special assistant to the executive governor of Katsina State on innovation and technology. In absentia, we welcome Mr. Ibrahim Adamu. So yeah, the last person I'll be introducing is Mr. Yusuf Babatunde. He is a pharmacist, an implementation researcher, and a human-centered public health, and a human-centered designer, with over 4 years of experience in design, implementation, and evaluation of public health programs across various fields. He also established the Alliance Against Antimicrobial Resistance, which is a AAA, which is a youth-led and youth-driven organization working with young people to spread awareness, generate evidence, and implement solutions addressing the drivers of AMR in Africa. So you are very welcome to the conversation, Mr. Yusuf. So you can unmute to just say hello to our audience.
Thank you so much. Hello everybody. Great to be here, and thank you, DRASA, for the invite.
Thank you for accepting our invite as well, Mr. Yusuf. So I know you're tired of hearing my voice yet again. So we'll just be diving straight into the juice of this conversation. So I think I'll just direct my first question. Okay, I can see that Mr. Ibrahim is on the call now. So please just give me a few minutes to add him to this conversation. So add him as a speaker rather. Mr. Ibrahim, if you can hear me, please, can you just tap on the mic icon at the bottom left part of your screen so that I can add you as a speaker? I can see that you are a listener now. Okay. I just sent a speaker invite, so I don't know if you received it. Please, if you did, just let me know. Mr. Ibrahim. Mr. Ibrahim, you can hear me? I just sent you an invite to be a speaker. All right. I think while we are waiting for Mr. Ibrahim to do that, we'll just start up with our questions. I think the first question will be directed to you, Mr. Yusuf. So if you were to explain antimicrobial resistance to a group of 5-year-olds, like very young children, right? How would you explain it in a way that it sticks to their memory and never leaves?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a very interesting and difficult question, majorly because the communication on AMR is a bit complicated due to many reasons. One, I would say the risk perception is still very low. People do not see it as a problem, and it's not really a disease. So communicating it has been very, very difficult at the grassroots level. And so let me give two examples. When we did a project in Abuja for high school students about 2 or 3 years ago, so we defined AMR in three ways. But before defining AMR, we first talked about what antibiotics are basically. So we said something like this. We said antibiotics are like cookies in a jar, right? And if we take them all the time, we would run out. And when we really need them, we won't be able to have them to use basically, right? And so we use that to kind of explain that when we take antibiotics all the time, there'll be a point in time where we would really need to use them and they would no longer be working, right? So that was like a first way that we tried to explain what AMR and what antibiotics are. And the second one kind of is that, um, imagine germs, right? Imagine germs are like tiny bad guys, right? And um, when you are like using medicine like antibiotics, they're like superheroes used to fight those bad guys. But if we now use those superheroes too much, right? If we keep using them even when the bad guys seem to not be a threat, the bad guys can adapt, right? And they can kind of understand the mechanism by which the superheroes attack. And what would mean is that the bad guys will get stronger, and that is why we only use medicines when a doctor says so. So we kind of use these two ways, one the superhero angle and the second one the cookie jar angle, to kind of explain what antibiotics are to young kids. And it's kind of it's been very, very helpful. And then after doing that, they will now really talk a bit more scientific and say, oh, when we get an infection, usually it is caused by a bacteria or a virus or any other microorganism. And AMR is now simply when that bacteria develops resistance to our superheroes, which we've talked about before, which are antibiotics. So therefore, when we take antibiotics, the drug will not work as the bacteria cannot survive, the infection will get prolonged, costs, healthcare costs would increase, and so on and so forth. So that's how we've been able to kind of make the terminology a bit simpler, and we know that it's still probably not as simple enough, and we are still trying to think about more ways by which we can simplify this, and which is what we did this last WOW campaign. We rolled out a Google form across young people to tell us what does antibiotics mean to them, and we're currently analyzing that data to understand what people understand as antibiotics, and using that to craft more simpler messages on what AMR means. Yeah.
Fantastic, Mr. Yusuf. I think I really like the aspect of the cookies. Yeah, I love cookies a lot. So I love the aspect of the cookies because I feel like that's something that children would never forget, right? And the aspect of superheroes as well, being that they watch a lot of cartoons and some of them even have these superheroes as role models. So yeah, I think that's a very good way to really all that you have explained rather is there are very good ways to explain antimicrobial resistance to a young audience. Thank you very much for that brilliant insight. I see that Mr. Ibrahim is now a speaker. So, yeah, welcome to the conversation, Mr. Ibrahim. Um, yeah,
Yeah, good evening and thank you very much.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. And my question is actually directed to you now. So I know that some people may not understand what antimicrobial resistance is, right? So I really want to ask, as a look at me as a layman now, right? What is antimicrobial resistance exactly? Is it a disease? Is it something that I can contact by maybe touching the sweat or the blood of somebody? Is it contagious? Like is it airborne? Like what is it exactly, and what is the treatment for it? So just help us break it down.
All right, I think we have several questions here. What is AMR? Is it a disease? Is it contagious? And yeah, even whether we can treat it or not. So
Yes.
I think first of all, we can start with AMR is not a disease on its own. It's actually what happens when these tiny germs, like the ones that are causing the cough and the fevers, become, let's say, too strong for medicines we use to kill them. So let think of it like this: when you fall sick, you take medications to feel right, to feel better, right? So now, imagine if this germ causing the sickness gets smarter and learn to dodge this medicine. So that's actually what AMR is. It's not a disease on its own. Technically, it's a phenomenon where these microbes, the germs, such as the viruses and the bacteria, develop the ability to survive the effects of the antimicrobial drugs that are designed to kill them or to retard their growth. So or let's say these drugs, the antibiotics, the antivirals, or the antifungals, are designed to kill these germs, the bacteria and the viruses. So these viruses and the bacteria develop some kind of mechanisms that they use to survive the effect of these drugs. So when these microbes, the bacteria and the viruses become resistant, the medications that are used to be effective in treating the infections they cause now can no longer work, making these infections that are caused by these viruses and bacteria even more harder to be treated. And this might sometimes even lead us to maybe even death. So therefore, as I mentioned earlier, it is important to know that
Am I the only one that stopped hearing Mr. Ibrahim?
AMR
Yeah, I guess he's having network challenges.
is not
Mr. Ibrahim, if you can hear me, can you hear me? Hello? I think the network is quite bad where it is. Can everyone hear me? Please, you can just send a reaction if you can hear me. You can still hear me. Okay. Mr. Ibrahim is trying to reconnect. I think I'll just hold on a second for him. Hello? Mr. Ibrahim, if you can hear me, you were trying to land your points on the question I asked. I think he's having network challenges. Okay, I'll just invite Mr. Okay, he's requested to speak. All right, I'll just move on to the next question while Mr. Ibrahim tries to fix his network issues. So yeah, my next question will be directed to you, Ifeanyiwa George of DRASA. Yeah, so with your background in pharmacy and your work in infectious diseases and AMR, can you please help us explain the relationship between AMR and our attitudes with taking medications?
Okay, thanks, John. So, for the purpose of this, while we know that AMR is cross-sectional, I'm going to be sticking to the human aspect of it because we have other experts online that can address the other sectors. So for how AMR is, influenced by our attitudes to taking medications, there are a number of things, right? So I remember then when we were in pharmacy school, there were the 5 R's. I think it was right patient, right drug, right dose, right duration. So all of those things actually do matter, right? Most times we're, taking antimicrobials without any kind of diagnosis, right? You feel a type of way and you just go, to a community pharmacy or maybe a pattern medicine vendor down the road. Or some people even do worse and just buy it from all these people that hawk it on the street because we know the regulation in the country isn't what it should be. So you just go, you're not feeling so good. No worry, take this one. And then you take this drug that has been given to you, an antibiotic, and the dose probably is not even right. It's not indicated for whatever you have. You don't have any prescription, there's no diagnosis, nothing. And you use that. And even worse, because you probably use and then it's not for that. So basically, you are taking at suboptimal doses, you're taking the wrong drug for whatever you have. And then, of course, in the human body, we always have like bacteria, different kinds. When it becomes an infection is when the bacteria grows to a point that it kind of exceeds what your immunity can combat. So now you are giving those bacteria these minimal doses or these inefficient doses of the antibiotics or the antimicrobials to play with. So now they're getting stronger. And when you do need that drug, you have like a condition or an infection that can be treated by that drug. At this point, it doesn't work anymore. Why? Because the microbes have developed resistance. So that's one thing that we do. We misuse, we overuse, and we're just treating without getting prescriptions or without even getting diagnosed. So those kind of things actually happen. And then there's those who are diagnosed and then they don't even complete the therapy. So I go to a hospital, let's say I have malaria, or let's even use typhoid, right? I have typhoid. I do the test, it shows that I have typhoid. Okay, they put me on ciprofloxacin. And now I'm taking this drug. After day 3, 4, I'm feeling better. And I'm supposed to use it for 5 days. At day 3, I'm feeling better. I say, there's no need to complete it. I stop. Wrong. Because now, suboptimal doses again, the dose in your body is not enough to kill to kill the bacteria or to kill, the causative agent at that point or the microbe at that point. So basically, you give it something to learn how to, defend itself against that drug. And by the next time you go down with the sickness again, because if you don't treat completely, it will come back again. Now that same drug doesn't work anymore for you. And if it's unfortunate and you're able to pass that infection on to somebody else, now they have a resistant strain and not even the one that drug can treat. So it's basically different habits that we have. But for the purpose of time, I can, just leave it at this point for us to understand the different things that we're doing that, is making AMR even more of a problem for the society. Thanks, and over, man.
Thank you so much, Ifeinwa. I think it's actually very important what you said, especially using drugs and when you start to feel well and you just abandon them because you feel like you're okay, not knowing that you are just giving the microorganisms more power to, come back stronger. Where you now try to use the drug again, you realize that this drug is no longer working, and it's just I think it's a very bad attitude or very bad habit that we have, especially in this part of the world. And we hope that with the message that we try to pass across to everybody about antimicrobial resistance, we hope that more people are more conscious about this and they take more active steps to preventing it. So yeah, I think that just leads me to my next point, my next question, which is actually from the environmental health sector. So yeah, this will be directed to you, Mr. Silas, and I want to ask, how does the environment and the way we interact with it, the way we live with it, the things we do in the environment, how does it contribute to the spread of AMR?
Thank you so much to all the speakers so far. We are all heading to the same direction. If you can hear the conversations, it's like we're already pointing out the problems and profiling solutions already to this silent pandemic. So the environment is a complex place, and but yet so simple. We all know that the humans and animals and even plants are all domiciled in the environment. So it is just a system that has a way of taking care of itself if every component of the environment plays its role the way it's supposed to be. But you know that man is the chief of the environment. Man has control, more control over every other existing entity in the environment. And so um, man will have his way to actually change the environment to suit the way man wants to. Man normally wants to be comfortable. Man wants to have, in fact, man has dominion over all. So, but this activity that we have actually adds to open defecation. Just recently, we had a program in Kano State. It's amazing to see or to know how people don't know that how diseases spread from little things that their habits, what they've been doing over time or over the years, could culminate into serious illnesses. As advocate for the environment, we preach against open defecation. Open defecation is one serious habit that helps to spread antimicrobial resistance in our society. So just imagine somebody who is on full dose of on a kind of antibiotic, and the person is in a remote area where their only water source is a stream, and this person goes to defecate upstream in the stream, and so the stream flows down. Then somebody downstream fetches that water and drinks. So, like we all know, taken in by human, some while it is being metabolized in the body, also gives some out when we urinate, and also we also feel the presence of such antibiotics. So questions are now arising, even in the environment. We finish using them. Like you were pointing out, someone was pointing out earlier, once we don't complete the dose, sometimes you are tempted to throw them just like that into the environment. Um, as if that is not enough, man wants to get comfortable, and so man wants to feed by raising animals, having poultry, having fisheries, and they result in fact, I even saw that they use antibiotics to improve yield. So they give chickens, they give fishes some of these antibiotics to take, and some of these farm animals. Of course, some of these are deposited in these animals, and we also consume. Man will consume them at the end of the day. So these are some of the activities we do that keep spreading antimicrobial resistance in the environment. So it is basically on our behaviors, on our activity. At some point, I was also guilty of this until I have to retrace my own steps too on abusing antibiotics. So it is basically on man. If man's attitude change, because I've not seen an animal going to a pharmaceutical store, a patent store to get antibiotics. It is still man that will administer them to animals. So if we can have a change or a rethink in our behaviors and help the environment, I think we are going to curb this menace called antimicrobial resistance. But I'll hang here for now. Thank you.
Mm. Thank you very much, Mr. Silas. I think the aspects of open defecation in particular is something that a lot of people in this part of the world are guilty of. I wanted to share my experience, but let me just not make this conversation too long. But it's actually important that we understand that the things that we put into the environment can later affect us. So let's not think that whatever we do is just there and there are no repercussions, if I should put it that way. So how you treat the environment is basically how the environment will treat you in turn. And you also actually said something that directs me to my next question, which is directed to Dr. Oloma. So, being someone that has a background in veterinary medicine, can you please explain how resistant microorganisms can spread from animals to humans?
Okay, great. Thank you. So, I mean, one of the core tenets of the One Health approach is, acknowledging how, humans, animals, plants, and all living things share the same environment. So, in the same way, there are microbes in all of us. Human beings have microbes, plants do, animals do. And so, kind of similar to how one of the drivers of AMR in human health, the driver for it in animal health is also overuse and misuse of antibiotics. So, animals are living things, they have microbes, so they can also fall sick as well. And sometimes you need antibiotics to treat some animal infections, and that's not bad. That's what antibiotics are for. Antimicrobials in general, they're for therapeutic use ideally. But sometimes in animal health, there's overuse where you see in some instances in like poultry production, antimicrobials are used as growth promoters. Growth promoters because there's this perception that giving poultry, chicken, antimicrobials will help them convert feed better and just not fall sick in general, which is a bit of a fallacy because they'll still fall sick. And then you see it, of course, sometimes it's used as a prophylactic, which is not a bad thing, but it's not always necessary. When I say prophylactic, my apology for the terminology, that's using it to prevent infection in the first place. Sometimes it's useful, but sometimes it's not. And then there's just the good old therapeutic use where you use to treat actual infections, which is necessary. So it's that thing of using antimicrobials and antibiotics as growth promoters, okay, and sometimes in a prophylactic way that's leads to this resistance, this antimicrobial resistance in animal health. There's also sometimes the problem of not dosing right. So this is also a thing of abuse. Sometimes when you want to use it therapeutically, you want to treat an animal that's truly sick. It might be a farmer who's not very educated about animal health, which is why it's important to always get a veterinarian's directive before treating animals. He might just go and give the his animals the dose he thinks is okay. Maybe he heard from another farmer, give this amount for so days. Yes, they are antimicrobials. They are supposed to have an effect, but if you don't use it in the right dosage, it will still lead to, that selection pressure for resistant microbes, which is, how AMR comes about to be. Um, and so spread to human beings is, these animals are in our environments. In subsistence farming, it's in the backyards, and we have pets at home. Oh yeah, another thing I forgot to mention, not just in production systems, even in, when you have companion animals like dogs and cats, sometimes giving them antimicrobials improperly can also lead to resistance occurring, and lead to that selection pressure for resistant genes of microbes. So how it, transfers to human beings is the good old direct contact. You touch, animal feces, animal waste. You just touch an animal who's sick or something, and you don't maintain good hand hygiene, which is one of the things that DRASA really pushes for. So it's really important that you wash your hands after coming in contact with animals, even your pets, as much as you love them so much. As often as you can, you should be washing hands around animals because they carry microbes that can sometimes be zoonotic and infect human beings. And now, when you touch an animal or you have direct contact with an animal without maintaining good hand hygiene, and then you contact, a resistant microbe from the animal, you see AMR then coming into, human spaces. You get a resistant microorganisms from these animals because you didn't just wash your hands or maintain, good hand hygiene. This also applies to food safety. In livestock production, many times the end result is food, poultry, beef, and all of that. And so when you handle these raw foods, you're supposed to cook them properly, maintain good hand hygiene. You shouldn't be touching raw meat and vegetables that you're not going to cook. You shouldn't be touching raw meat and then touching your salad bowl. You're supposed to be washing hands because these are also how these microbes move from animals to humans, directly and indirectly. There's also the role of, reservoirs in the environment through animal feces, either the ones human beings are not disposing properly or the ones that are waste from farms, from animal production systems. Sometimes they they move from these farms into water, into soil, and they just stay there until it gets to a human being's cup. Or somebody plants something on contaminated soil and then harvests and consumes this contaminated foods. And then there's always the role of wildlife as well. Not very common, especially in more urban settings, but in the more rural settings where people are very close to forests and all of that, coming in contact with wildlife is another way that you can contract resistant microbes. So yeah, these are some of the ways that antimicrobial resistance occurs in animal health and how it moves into human populations. Thanks.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Dr. Oloma. I think some salient points, apart from just consumption of these animals that have been, affected, I think, and that thing that you mentioned is hand washing. Yeah, so sometimes we just play with our pets, especially with dogs or cats or whichever pets we have in our houses, right? We just play with them and, go ahead to use that same hand to hold our spoon or, use it to eat a bar or something. And you don't know what the animal has carried from where the environment or something. And it's actually very profound that we are very careful with our food and around our pets as well, so that we not make the mistake of indirectly consuming what is not for us, right? So thank you so much. I think we've learned so much so far, and I loved how the perceived complexity of AMR across the human, animal, and environmental sector has actually been simplified by our speakers here today. I think truly we are looking at AMR through a One Health lens. I know you might have a lot of questions to our audience now. I know you might have a lot of questions, a lot of comments, something you might want to contribute to this conversation. I'd advise that you just jot them down. We'll have a time where we open up the floor for comments and questions and contributions. Um, if you are just joining us, you are not too late. It's DRASA Health Trust here bringing you this conversation about antimicrobial resistance. And we have been discussing with Ifeanyi George of DRASA, the AMR program manager at DRASA. We have also been discussing with Mr. Silas Ako of the Federal Ministry of Environment. We also have with us Dr. Oloma Agiri from the One Health Trust. We have Mr. Yusuf Babatunde from the Alliance Against Antimicrobial Resistance. And of course, we have Mr. Ibrahim Adamu of the AMR Intervarsity Clubs, and we are discussing the topic understanding AMR through the One Health lens. I see that, I don't know if it's a mistake, but Mr. Ibrahim, your hand was raised. But please feel free to tweet your thoughts, your comments about this conversation, anything that you have learned, either about washing your fruits, AMR being described as cookies, like Mr. Yusuf said. Just feel free to share your insights with others and use the hashtags DRASA, X Spaces, Learn with DRASA, and One Health AMR. So we'll be diving straight into the next set of questions. And I think I'll go back to you again, Mr. Yusuf. So how would you describe the role of youth in championing AMR awareness? So I know that you are one of the founders of the AAA. So like, how would you describe what youth can do in championing AMR awareness?
Thank you so much. Yeah, very very important area to talk about. One, because I'm a young person myself, and secondly because I think the power of young people. We've seen it being done in climates, in other areas, and we've seen the amazing things young people can do if given the opportunities, if given the resources and the mentorship and the platform to kind of share ideas and lead projects, right? And so one of the reasons why I established AAA together with some of my colleagues is because we believe that young people are closest to the community, and majority of the drivers of AMR from research has shown to also happen in the community as well. Of course, it also many of them happen in the hospital, but if we can also kind of educate people in the community, try to let them understand what AMR is, what an antibiotic is. We've seen people ridiculously say, "Oh, antibiotics are drugs used for anti-inflammatory in the communities," right? And we can't judge them, but it's because they do not know what it is, right? And so we've tried to organize projects, and currently I think our network of young people has covered more than 20 states in Nigeria, actively organizing various campaigns and outreaches in AMR. And I'll just talk about some of our lessons learned and how young people can really advance this role. And the first thing I would say is that we often forget that infection prevention and control is a core component of AMR. And so when young people go for awareness, all they talk about is AMR, right? And now we've tried to ensure that we also talk equally about preventing infection and controlling infection as well. Because it's very, very important for us to understand the need to reduce incidence of infections through effective sanitation, through hygiene, and also other preventive measures, right? I saw one interesting data that if we can have WASH and IPC, we can prevent up to 247,000 AMR associated deaths annually. And this just shows the importance of WASH. And all WASH activities are AMR sensitive, whether you're talking about water access, distribution, hand washing, everything all leads to either increasing consumption of antibiotics or transmission of resistant pathogens. For instance, let's take if there's a lack of access to clean water, for instance, what happens? People cannot perform hygiene, people will consume unsafe water. What that will lead to will be spread of infectious diseases, spread of waterborne diseases, and what that will lead to will be increase in consumption of antibiotics. You can see that everything still comes back to AMR. So we need our young people to be trained more on IPC. For instance, I know the NCDC is doing an amazing work on IPC capacity building at hospitals and premier healthcare centers. But I think it would be great to also have maybe a short curriculum or an online course specifically for young people in the healthcare field or even non-healthcare field to learn more about IPC so that they can pass the knowledge down to the communities, to their hospitals and whatnot. So one, the role of youth should be in spreading the knowledge and awareness on infection prevention and control. Then secondly, I think we often limit the role of youth to just AMR awareness. And I agree that the first objective of the Global Action Plan or even the Nigerian Action Plan is to improve awareness and understanding, right, through effective communication, education, and training. But I think young people's role could also extend beyond awareness to include surveillance, for instance, because I know that surveillance is very, very, very important in the fight against AMR. And in simple words, surveillance basically is collecting data, analyzing data, and also interpreting data, essential for any public healthcare practice, in this case AMR. And we needed to understand the problem more, to understand the magnitude, to understand the trends, and to also plan for its control, or to also monitor effects of several um, interventions. So we have projects like GLASS and other AMR surveillance campaigns that have been done globally and also in our dear country, Nigeria. But I've not seen young people being engaged, being trained on how to use some of these tools, right? Because I think, number one, the number says it all, right? The youth population is the largest in Nigeria. So imagine we can train more young people on AMR surveillance, and they themselves can even come up with better ways to do it. Young people are more tech savvy. They can think about how they can use AI and machine learning to develop more automated surveillance systems, even make the process easier. But if they don't have the knowledge of it, it's hard for them to say they want to use the knowledge to do anything, right? So we need to increase the capacity of youth, also in surveillance, just because I really know.
Um, can anyone hear Mr. Yusuf?
In terms of communication, again, the communication by AMR is still very, very. Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. I think it was my network. Please go ahead. Go on, please. Hello, Mr. Yusuf, can you hear me? Oh my God, I think his network. Um, Mr. Yusuf, can you hear me?
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, I think Mr. Yusuf is probably experiencing some network challenges. Mr. Yusuf, can you hear me? Okay, I was really enjoying the conversation we're having right now, but we'll just move on to the next question. Mr. Yusuf, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, please, yes, I can hear you now. Please
Oh,
continue
sorry.
your thoughts.
Okay, yeah. So my third point was on the role of youth in the simplification of AMR messaging. So I was giving an example that in AAA, for instance, we've been able to engage over 120 youths in the last 2 years to simplify AMR message into one infographic. Then we also engage them and encourage them to translate those messages into their local languages. So we saw young people translating AMR into Igbo, into Hausa, into Ibibio, into Swahili, into French, into over 50 local languages, and then they are then disseminating these infographics in their communities. So again, another important role of youth is in terms of developing templates and developing message banks, right? That can be used quickly and is always available in like editable formats. So those infographics are open access, and we've been able to share them to other organizations to use in their own campaigns. All these were possible through the power of young people, right? So that's also like a very, very important area that what young people can do. And lastly, I would say, I think an area that we don't talk about enough is in terms of using storytelling to communicate AMR, because we have people that are AMR survivors. We have people that have experienced resistant bacteria in the hospitals that they had to use antibiotics in the reserved class for them. So why don't we raise awareness of AMR from a patient perspective? I think it could be very, very crucial. So imagine we could engage young people to maybe we could get consent or whatnot to interview patients that have been survivors of AMR, and then we can craft their stories into effective storytelling campaigns and use that to raise more awareness. We engage people in the media, we engage in journalists. This could really, really go a long way. So I think these are just few examples of ways young people can contribute to the AMR, and I'm sure there's so many other ways, but I think because of time, I'll just limit it to just these 4 key areas. Yeah. So one, on surveillance, on IPC, simplifying messages, and also using storytelling to also communicate AMR. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. I think I really love all that you have said, and truly, the younger generation is closer, or they are closer to the communities, right? And Nigeria has one of the youngest population. I don't know if it's in the world, but I know there are a lot of young people in Nigeria. And I particularly like the part where you talked about languages, translating AMR messages into people's languages so that they understand them better. So yeah, it's actually very important, and you've raised a very salient point here. Um, Thank you very much for your contribution. So I'll just be moving over to you, Dr. Oloma. I know that you are a veterinary doctor, and you've had some work in the animal sector. So yeah, how would you describe the use of antimicrobials in livestock farming? Yeah, particularly chickens, and the danger it poses to human health. I know that especially in this part of the world, we eat a lot of chicken, right? Especially poultry products, and also yeah, what danger does it really pose to our health as human beings?
Okay, thanks for that question. So, like I tried to establish the first time I spoke, there are microbes in practically all species, living species in the world, including animals. And microbes in animals are not abnormal. And so sometimes animals have infections that need to be treated. And I remember I said that antimicrobial use in animals sometimes is therapeutic and expected, like how you try to treat a typhoid infection in a human being, um, or septicemia or something. The same way in an animal that have a bacterial infection and you use antibiotics to treat it normally. And this is not bad, it's expected. That's the way for the animal to survive. But the problem comes about when it's being used in abnormal way, which is what we now call the overuse and abuse of antimicrobials. So in chickens, especially, and I'm guessing chickens is a good example here because they are one of the more easily accessible sources of meat. The return on investment is fast if you choose to grow poultry, and they are easily accessible, and they don't take a long time to grow. I mean, maybe 6-12 weeks or so. You have full-grown broilers to eat. So therapeutic use is good. It's okay. It's allowed. There's the thing, like I said, called prophylactic use. That's preventative use. It's not the healthiest thing, but sometimes it's necessary, especially if you maybe anticipate a disease outbreak in a farm. Sometimes you have to move ahead of the germs and prevent it. But the one we really, really discourage is use of antimicrobials as growth promoters in poultry production. And poultry production is one of the biggest culprits of this, instance. So farmers give these birds antimicrobials to make sure they don't get sick in any form. There's no outbreak being anticipated. You just give it so that the animals will just convert the feed well. They won't have any form of drop in production and all that. And this is something perceived, and sometimes it has some effects, but it's not even 100%, because sometimes you might use it as growth promoters and your animals will still fall sick, and probably with resistant infections. Okay, so this is one of the ways it's just used in poultry production. There's that growth promotion aspect that we're really trying to, advocate against and all of that. And another problem with some of this growth promotion thing is that, okay, and also sometimes with therapeutic uses, some farmers don't dose it well. Some farmers don't dose antibiotics well for the animals. They just dispense it how they perceive it to be right. And like I said, this also speaks to the importance of vets who are supposed to give you a dosage, a prescription, and give you directions on how to administer these drugs. Sometimes it's used suboptimally. And when antimicrobials are not used at the right dosage, it causes something called selection pressure. So what happens is the susceptible microorganisms, the ones that can be killed, the ones that the antimicrobial can work on, will die. There will always be some resistant ones in, these animals. But by the time you keep using antimicrobials unnecessarily, excessively, suboptimally, you are selecting for the resistant ones to grow more. That's actually how antimicrobial resistance works, just to take us back a bit. AMR is a natural phenomenon. Microbes will always develop resistance, just how they adapt, how they survive. However, these man-made practices, like abusing antimicrobials, not giving it properly to these animals, using it as growth promoters, puts too much pressure, selects for resistant microbes. Those resistant ones keep growing because you kill off the good ones and leave the resistant ones to bloom because you use it too much. I don't know if I'm saying it very well, but I guess if you have the opportunity, you should read up on how exactly AMR plays out in living organisms. And so these are the things I was trying to discourage in animal health. Now, how this is a danger to human health is, of course, there's already this selection pressure, which means you now have an instance where there are more than usual resistant microbes at any point in time. There would originally have been some, while the majority would be susceptible. When I say susceptible, I mean can be killed by the drugs, the antibiotics. But then you continue to abuse antimicrobials in animal health. You have at any point in time more than the normal amount of resistant microbes, and they keep growing. Okay, that's the point. They keep growing, and they will get to an extent where they're no longer susceptible at all. The drugs won't work at all. The disease just keeps on going because there's no drug that's working for it. And these germs are smart. They also transfer resistance between each other, something they call gene transfer. Complex, but yes, not just when they're exposed to drugs on their own, they're also trying to survive anything. So they transmit these resistant genes to other susceptible microbes around them. There's also the danger of zoonosis. Now, sometimes the microbes we're trying to treat in animals, in chicken, things like E. coli, salmonella, can be zoonotic. They can infect human beings as well. So if you have resistant E. coli and salmonella moving from poultry populations to human beings, that's going to be a problem because you're not treating a human being with what you think should treat E. coli, but it's not working. And the doctor is confused. You know where this is coming from. Meanwhile, this person works on a poultry farm and doesn't follow good hand hygiene. The farm doesn't follow biosecurity measures or anything. These are the dangers we have. Also, these resistant genes can get into the environment through waste from these farms, poultry slurry, waste, urine, feces. Sorry, poultry don't produce urine. My bad. Let's say fecal waste. Okay. These things get into the environment, into soil, into water, and then can also, infect human beings. And sometimes the drugs used in this poultry production are medicines that are used for human beings as well, right? It's not always, but sometimes they're medicines that are used for human beings. Now, when you have resistant genes coming from poultry, it's infecting human beings. You want to use this same human being antibiotics to treat people, but it won't work because these organisms have already been exposed to those drugs from poultry, and it just causes a whole complex situation. So yes, this is how, we just have a whole AMR compounded complex situation where nobody knows where the resistance is coming from because of some of these small mistakes that we make as human beings. So yeah, I would say this is how, especially in poultry production, how resistance can occur there and then, affect human human beings. Thanks.
Mm, thank you so much. I think you have loaded it a lot of information about that aspect, seeing a lot of angles that you came from. Thank you so much, Dr. Oloma. I think I'll just direct my next question to you, Mr. Ibrahim. So I know that you are a co-founder of the AMR University Training Program, right? So what role do you think that students can play, and what can the Ministry of Education do to increase AMR awareness in tertiary institutions?
Thank you very much for this question, and apologies, I had some network issues while answering the first question. So I think I believe students are in a unique position to drive change in regards to AMR, especially in tertiary institutions. They have a lot of role to play in this regard. Let's say number one, via education and advocacy. So, um, uh, student can form or join AMR awareness initiatives like the AMR clubs that we have and educate their peers about the dangers of AMR as well as how to prevent antimicrobial resistance. This will take me back to the previous question that you asked me about whether AMR is has a treatment or not, because AMR is not a disease, as I mentioned earlier. So there is no treatment for antimicrobial resistance because it's just a problem that that complicates the treatment of infections. Its own, it's not actually a disease. So when someone has an infection with this drug resistant pathogens, they might require alternative or more potent drugs, which can be less effective, more expensive, or even have some more severe side effects. So students have an opportunity to educate their peers when they are being involved in AMR advocacy, so that their peers will also got to learn that, oh, so this is AMR and these are the dangers of AMR, as well as how to prevent the occurrence of AMR. Maybe just through letting them know that they can only take drugs when prescribed by a healthcare personnel, as well as maintaining the good hygiene, getting vaccinated, as well as handling food safely. So all these are kind of initiatives that when students have maybe a body such as the AMR clubs that we have, they can contribute their quota in educating their peers as well as maybe their own communities. They can also organize seminars, workshops, as well as outreach on their campuses, as well as in their communities, or even social media activities to help in raising awareness against antimicrobial resistance. And we have seen that these AMR clubs that we've been initiating, they are doing amazing work in this regard. Not just during the World Antimicrobial Awareness Week, but across the year, they have been doing their own works at the community level, because we're actually focusing on educating people at the grassroots level through this antimicrobial resistance club that we are initiating in the tertiary institutions, and we are seeing the impact of the work that they are doing. So number two, also students can also participate in AMR research as well as innovation. Students studying fields like microbiology, pharmacy, veterinary sciences, and public health can engage in research projects focused on AMR. It might either be surveillance of AMR, it might be maybe exploring the alternatives for antibiotics, and what have you. They can also innovate solutions, not just people that are into maybe public health can contribute in the fight against AMR. People in tech can help us in developing apps that we can use in the surveillance or in even the awareness campaigns. They can also help us in developing strategies to promote the responsible use of antimicrobials. There are a lot of initiatives and innovations that we are seeing from young people, especially the student at tertiary institutions now, that they are coming with innovative ways of awareness campaigns, as well as ways to maybe facilitate or improve the research that we are doing currently in our tertiary institutions. Beside that, students can also lead by example by avoiding self-medication, as simple as that, just by completing their prescribed course of antibiotics, and also showing it to their colleagues that, yeah, this is the right thing to do, and also encouraging others to also copy from them. These are some of the things that students can do, because in schools, especially in universities, there is that kind of uh, following the trends, or yeah, following what I've seen my friends are doing. So when students inculcate this attitude of promoting the responsible behavior of taking the antibiotics as prescribed by the doctor, as well as completing their prescribed drugs. So their colleagues will also like to copy from them. They can also promote the good hygiene practices within their communities to reduce the spread of infections. We actually focuses or emphasize on infection prevention and control in our programs that we are running with the student, because as you asked me earlier that whether AMR is contagious. AMR itself doesn't spread like the cold or the flu, but the germs that have learned to fight these medicines can move from one person to another, maybe through direct contact or through contamination with contact with the contaminated surfaces, the food or the water, as well as the animals, as emphasized by Dr. Oloma. So these are some of the initiatives the student can contribute in the fight against AMR, especially when they have a kind of initiative like an AMR club in their own institutions, not just in tertiary institutions, but also in the secondary schools. I know DRASA is working with secondary school students to make them champion the fight against AMR. So students have a unique position to play some kind of important role in the fight against AMR. Talking about the Ministry of Education, I think Ministry of Education has a crucial role to play in institutionalizing the AMR awareness in tertiary institutions. AMR education can be integrated into the curricula. That's one. Not just for healthcare students, because I know almost the healthcare student, especially at the tertiary, at the university level, there is this modus on AMR. But what of those that are not in healthcare line, like people that are studying history and tech and what have you? So I think there is need for tertiary.
Can anyone hear Mr. Ibrahim? Hello, Mr. Ibrahim, can you hear us? I think Mr. Ibrahim's network is bad. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, Mr. Ibrahim. I don't know. I think network is pretty bad on your end. But yeah, we'll just move on. So before we have our final words, I think we'll just move on to the next person, Mr. Silas. So please, can you share insights on the effect? Hello?
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you,
Sorry,
ma'am.
please. Okay, I think I'm hearing myself. It's echoing. Okay, just Mr. Silas, please, can you just share insights on the effects of environmental pollution, especially on healthy habits that lead to improper waste disposal and the spread of EMR?
All right, thank you again for excellent coordination so far. And I thank all my fellow speakers for bringing in their experiences and their insight. It shows that AMR is a collective battle in which collaboratively we can win. And from environmental point of view, there are a lot of things that can pollute the environment, especially our environmental media. When we talk about environmental media, we're talking about our soil, our water, our air. These media can be contaminated by pollutants of different sorts. Now, if pollutants arise from drugs, antimicrobial drugs, then they can come in form of effluents. Effluents are produced when pharmaceutical industries, water waste treatment plants, agricultural runoff, and even health facilities. They can produce a lot of these effluents. And whenever these effluents have contact with our environmental media, then of course, they contain antimicrobial residues, which we cause resistance in the microorganisms that originally live in this media. This happens at the course of as mutation. Sometimes mutation can be a sudden change in the gene of these normal microorganisms that reside in this media. And so the impacts on our environment, and also we that are domiciled in the environment, in fact, it's so enormous. Our ecosystem actually are affected, and also biodiversity. We get exposure to antimicrobial in the environment, which can lead to infections which are difficult to treat. I think our speakers have said that over and over. Then economically, it affects business too. Economically, we spend a lot of money trying to treat ourselves for diseases that normally we use little money to buy drugs. Our agriculture will be affected, whether plants or animals, their productivity will be reduced. Then to have also negative impacts on other things that are actually normally beneficial to man. So since we are trying to provide solutions, we can actually improve wastewater treatment that can be done. There are innovations, there are innovative technology in which we can treat our waste. There are devices which are already in other countries, but hopefully it will be in the country soon, which can actually incinerate without radiation, without smoke, without causing any further environmental, because once the problem with antimicrobial resistance is that you are trying to solve a problem, and you are solving a problem by creating a greater problem. And that is one of the issues we have. But with such innovations, we're able to deal with the problems we are supposed to generate because we're trying to solve a problem. So we can
Yeah,
also hello.
yeah, okay, no, go for it,
Okay.
go on.
Okay, we can enhance surveillance, like it has been said earlier, surveillance and monitoring in our environment. We can do that on our effluent, map the factories that are actually producing antimicrobial. In fact, it will shock you that there are a lot of factories that are producing a lot of antibiotics in this country that we don't even know. Some of them are producing the backyards. They're against standards, and it's painful to know that some of these drugs are even more in circulation than those that are produced with high standard in the kind of society we are. So if the actual surveillance is done, we can curb some of these surveillance and monitoring can curb some of these problems. I think I will stop for now. Then overall, I keep saying behavioral change, how we treat our waste and how we treat our environment is very, very, very important. So we should not throw away waste indiscriminately. We should actually treat them before discarding them into the environment. Just imagine a remote lab somewhere where microorganisms have been cultured. Let's say bacteria has been cultured on agar, and after doing after the culture and sensitivity, and the student doesn't, or the person in the lab doesn't need the organism again, instead of and the person want to do sharp practice, sometimes just not autoclave, they just throw those things like that into the um, into the into the surrounding like that. So some of this attitude um, is not a good one for us, and if we can able to change, I tell you, our environment will be a best place to stay, and we're also helping our own life to improve our livelihood and living and having a better life. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Silas. Our environment would be a better place to live in if only we treat it well. So, right now, before we open the floor for questions and contributions, and also have the final words, we would love everyone on the call today to pledge their commitment to be advocates of safe antimicrobial use within their spheres of influence. So, there's a pinned tweet in our profile. There's a link to a pledge there. The questions are short and straight to the point. So just tell us, from all that you have listened today, from the animal sector, you gain insight from the animal sector, the environmental sector, and the human sector. So just tell us, please, what will you do differently? You'd see the link to the pledge on a pinned tweet in our profile. So just go right there and just pledge your allegiance to promise to keep the environment safe, and to basically spread the awareness of AMR to the public. Yes, before I open the floor for questions or contributions, I'd like to thank everyone here for being on the call today and thanking our speakers for their brilliant insights that they have brought across their various sectors. For final words, before we open the floor for questions, I would hand that over to you to Ms. Ifeinwa. Please, can you just tell us, just very briefly, actionable steps that you recommend to our listeners here today? What are lifestyle changes that they can take up to, control the spread and spread the word about antimicrobial resistance in their homes and communities? Just briefly, please.
Okay. Thanks, John. For the habits or the lifestyle changes that we can, show that we can adopt in order to help or to support the efforts in tackling AMR. From what we've heard here, we can see that it's not just at the human level, although humans are the ones driving it across all of the sectors, but we have to, think through the One Health approach. We have to think through what we're doing in, the medications we're using on ourselves. Think about all the medications that are being used in the agricultural sector for animal and for the food sectors as well. We have to think through, the environment. What are we, releasing to the environment, from open defecation to improper disposal of drugs to, Mr. Silas spoke to the effluents from the hospitals, from farms, from different places, from pharmaceutical companies. That we have to think through how we can, within our communities, already try to show change in ourselves and also try to educate those around us, so we can propagate what's the word now? We can propagate change within our community. So it starts with us, it starts with one person, and within your community, you can be the driver for change. So let's take all of the learnings that we've gotten from this session and let's try and apply them in our everyday life and try to educate at least one person per day. Within your circle, you'll be surprised as to how poor the awareness for AMR is. Let's put the word out there. Let's try and educate people. A regular farmer in your neighborhood that owns a poultry, something, just anything at all, basically, that you can take from here and put out there, as a word to people or a call to action for people to do better in helping us, preserve the antimicrobials that we have for ourselves and for the future generations. So thank you. And that's all on my end. I think the floor is open now for questions and for discussion. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Ifeinwa, for that brief summary. So now the floor is open. So all those your questions, your contributions that you have jotted down from the beginning of this conversation, right now is the time for you to share with our speakers, and they are here for you to listen to them and to answer all of your questions. Meanwhile, please don't forget to fill the AMR pledge. You can check the bottom right corner of your screen. You see a chat-like icon. So there is a pinned tweet showing the pledge. So just pledge your promise to, to spread the word about AMR, to, influence people, to talk about it to people. When you see someone doing the wrong thing, tell them that, okay, this is what is going to cause in generations to come, just so that they are aware and we can help curb the spread of AMR before it becomes a real threat to life. So yeah, thank you very much. If you want to speak, please raise your hand. I'll grant you speaker rights. I can see the pledges coming in. Thank you to everyone that has filled so far. So yeah, you have any questions, any contributions, or any comments before we close the session for today? Oh, and yes, please do not forget to share your tweets, your live tweets with us using the hashtags OneHealthAMR and Learn with DRASA. Just share them with us so that you can also tag us on your posts so that we can engage with you. Okay, I can see some people have requested to speak, so I would be granting speaker rights right about now. Okay. Yeah, Mr. Musa, please go on with your question. I've approved your request to speak. Can you hear me, Mr. Musa? Yes, I can hear you. We can hear you now. Please go on with your question. Just very briefly, please.
Okay, I don't have. I'm Musa Usman Babagarim. I'm from a president of Antimicrobial Resistance Club Mauyola. I don't have question. I just want to use this opinion. I just want to use this chance to thank you for giving us more light on One Health on antimicrobial resistance, both from environmentals, women, and agriculture. Thank you so much. We are really appreciate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Musa. Thank you so much. We appreciate you too for being on this conversation with us. I think I have another request from the AMR Intervarsity Clubs, but somehow I can't accept it. Can you send your request again, please? Can you hear me? Okay. Yes. So you can now speak AMR IVTP. The floor is open for you. I'm not sure what the issue is, but yeah, please don't forget to continue to fill up our pledge against AMR. Your AMR pledge is very important. We promise to curb the spread of antimicrobial resistance. AMR IVTP, I'm not sure what's wrong with the network or something. I can see your request and I keep accepting it, but I'm not sure what's happening. All right. We just have about 2 minutes to go. I don't know if there are any other questions or contributions before we call it a day. All right. Yeah. In the interest of time, I want to thank all of you for being on the call today. Thank you for your active participation. Thank you for listening to us. We appreciate our eloquent speakers who have done a fantastic job bringing in their various perspectives about AMR from their various sectors. We also thank you all. And before we close, I'd like to remind us of something. I remember I asked us earlier to ponder on something. Imagine a time where drugs no longer work. How would it be? How would the world be like at that time? We hope that something like that never happens to us, and which is why we are kicking against antimicrobial resistance, trying all that we can to build up interventions to, curb the spread and let people be aware of the danger that it poses to our health. Thank you all again. Please take this conversation back to your homes and the communities and share all you have learned here today. Don't forget to tweet your thoughts with us and use the hashtags DRASA X Spaces, Learn with DRASA, and One Health AMR. Thank you all so much. Have a good evening, have a good night's rest, and a restful weekend ahead. Good night. Bye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, John, for anchoring this. Thank you, Drasa, and good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in.